The Supreme Court is set to begin its new term today, and there are some controversial high-profile cases on the docket. The 9 Supreme Court justices will be reviewing 5 cases, including gay and abortion rights, DACA, and health care.
The cases arrive at the High Court as the 2020 election campaign continues to heat up, and the rulings are expected to impact tens of thousands of American voters.
CBS News chief legal correspondent Jan Crawford is live at the Supreme Court with more on the upcoming cases, Jan. So walk us through these cases. What should Americans know about each one, the high-profile ones?
Well, and I mean, bottom line is they're taking up almost every hot button issue there is out there. I mean, abortion, gun rights, immigration, gay rights, I mean, you name it. And they're going to jump right into it, starting tomorrow with one of the bigger cases of the term that looks at whether or not federal law protects gays, lesbians, transgender people from discrimination on the job, whether they're protected by that federal law in employment discrimination. But then they're going to have in the months to come an abortion case that looks at whether or not states can put more regulations on abortion clinics. That's been a very controversial issue, as some like Planned Parenthood and other groups say that this is an effort to really curtail a woman's right to an abortion. The people on the other side of the issue say no, this is all about women's health and safety. Then they've got a case that looks at, as you said, DACA, and whether or not President Trump has lawfully tried to end that Obama-era program that protects the so-called dreamers, the people that came to this country illegally as children. They've got a gun rights case that looks at a law from the state of New York that makes it harder for law-abiding citizens who own guns, legal gun owners, to take their guns outside their homes. I mean, that's just a few of the cases they've got already. And I mean, obviously, this is going to come right in the middle, as Vlad said, of a highly contested presidential election.
And Jan, let's focus on that abortion case. It is strikingly similar to a ruling that was made back in 2016. What makes this one different, and is it enough of a difference to change the decision made 3 years ago?
Well, I mean, that's a great question. And the lower court in this case, this is a case from Louisiana. The other case was one from Texas. So the lower court said, well, the Louisiana law is slightly different, so we're going to allow it. I think that that's a pretty that's kind of a stretch. I mean, I think this court may see the law as pretty similar. And the question is whether or not Justice Kavanaugh, who was replacing Justice Kennedy, whether he's going to see this law the same way. Justice Kennedy was a key vote that struck down, with the liberals, to strike down that law from Texas several years ago. So that could make this case turn out differently. The Chief Justice, who voted with conservatives in that abortion case from Texas several years ago, he may see the case differently now, since there is an existing opinion on the book. Who knows? I mean, we'll get a better sense after the argument in that case. It hasn't been scheduled yet, but that's going to be one of the ones that, I mean, they've not had a lot of abortion cases up here recently. That is always a contentious issue, and you can expect this plaza will be packed with protesters on both sides.
Yeah, this is going to be a test of the overall sort of those trap laws that we've been seeing passed across the country that sort of make it more challenging for abortion doctors to sort of continue in that practice, and limiting the number of clinics available in a lot of states. So can we expect to see any surprise rulings, though, from any of the justices?
Sure. I mean, you never know. I mean, believe it or not, this is my 25th year covering the Supreme Court, and wow. There have been times when I was pretty sure, based on the way justices had looked at cases in the past and the way their questions came down at oral arguments, that I had a pretty good idea how they were going to rule. And you typically can get clues. And then there are times when you're standing out here in June and somebody shoves that opinion in your hand, and you look at it and you go like, oh my God. I mean, like, I didn't see that coming. Obamacare was an example of that, where the Chief Justice, after the oral argument, looked certain to strike down the Obamacare healthcare law, President Obama's signature achievement in Congress, and he voted with the liberals to uphold it. So yeah, I mean, you're going to have some surprises. I think what's going to be so interesting about this term is we don't know how Justice Kavanaugh is going to see some of these issues. Last term, his first term on the Supreme Court, was really quiet. They took really no contentious cases at all, I think, in some ways by design, just to have kind of a quieter term. But this term, I mean, you hate to throw around words like blockbuster and landmark, you know, those can be overused, but this is going to be that.
And you already pointed this out, Jan, but the 2020 elections, of course, right around the corner. How will the decisions the Supreme Court makes impact voters, perhaps, down the line?
Well, I mean, I think that's the right focus. I mean, the court, their decisions really aren't affected by whether or not it's an election year. But the focus should be on how the court is going to be a political issue in the election. And as we saw in 2016, conservative voters, the Supreme Court was a big reason that they said they were casting a vote for Donald Trump. So you're going to have the court now again teed up as an issue in this presidential campaign on both sides. I mean, the stakes are high. I mean, it's going to be easy for these candidates to say, look, you know, as president, that's his most lasting legacy, his nominees to the Supreme Court. And you can see this term, these cases, they're going to affect all Americans in any number of ways in their everyday lives, whether it's discrimination on the job, whether or not it's your religious freedoms, gun rights, abortion rights, all of that is on deck this term. All that's going to be teed up.
It's going to be an interesting year. Dan said blockbuster.
Yeah, no, I think so. But one thing the court does not like to do is retire during an election year. Let me just make this point. So I would not expect, and Justice Ginsburg, by all accounts, she's back here at work. She's been working hard. Her health is fine. I would not expect next year when we're standing out here on the first Monday of October, I would not expect this court, absent any surprises, to look any different. I think everyone's going to stay put this year.
All right, Jan, thank you very much.